Ah, so the anomaly continues. Look who's been winning a little too much lately. Look who's been catching breaks that make no statistical sense. Look who's been dodging bullets and finding gold where others find dust. They're watching you now, aren't they? Refreshing your socials, counting your wins, taking screenshots, whispering in their group chats, trying to decode the formula behind your sudden ascension. Because something shifted, didn't it? One day you were drowning in the same quicksand as everyone else, and then boom, doors started opening. Calls started coming, checks started clearing, opportunities started appearing out of thin air, like the universe finally got your forwarding address. And now they're all asking the same question behind your back. What deal did you make? Oh, they're trying so hard to find the catch, aren't they? Searching for the fine print, the hidden cost, the secret sacrifice, because in their small minds, nobody just gets lucky like this. Nobody goes from forgotten to favored without selling something precious. They're convinced you traded your soul at a crossroads, made a pact with darkness, shook hands with something unholy. But here's what kills them the most. You didn't make any deal. You didn't sign any contract. You didn't sacrifice anything except the version of you that believed in their limitations. You see, luck isn't what they think it is. Luck is what happens when you stop negotiating with mediocrity and start demanding what you deserve. Let me paint you a picture of what's really happening here. Every time you win, they lose their minds a little more. That promotion you got while they're still stuck in the mailroom. That relationship that appeared right when you stopped looking. That opportunity that fell into your lap while they're still sending desperate emails into the void. They're creating spreadsheets trying to track your success, looking for patterns, checking moon phases, researching your bloodline, convinced there's some ancestral magic at play. Some are even visiting psychics, asking about you specifically. What protection do they have? What entity watches over them? What did they do to break the matrix? The truth is so much simpler and so much more terrifying. You stopped playing by their rules. You stopped accepting their version of possible. You stopped asking permission to receive what was always meant for you. And the moment you did that, the moment you truly believed you deserved better, everything rearranged itself to match your new frequency. But they can't accept that, can they? Because accepting that would mean admitting they're the architects of their own limitations. It would mean acknowledging that while they were busy making vision boards and chanting affirmations, you were busy becoming magnetic to success through pure, unbothered confidence. You know they're watching, right? Every story you post, every win you share, every casual mention of another blessing has them frantically typing in their private chats. They've assigned someone to monitor your movements. Unofficially, of course. Someone always volunteers to keep tabs, to report back to the group with updates. Did you see what they posted now? Another win, another blessing, another door opening. While we're all stuck in the hallway, they must have help. They must know someone. They must have made a deal. There's no other explanation. And my personal favorite, they're not even that special. Why them? They've compiled theories about you. Some think you found a grimoire in your grandmother's attic. Others are convinced you're part of some secret society. They've even started tracking numerological patterns in your posts, looking for hidden messages, occult symbols, proof of your supernatural connections. Meanwhile, you're just living authentically for the first time in your life, making moves based on intuition instead of fear, saying yes to opportunities without overthinking, trusting that good things can happen to you without cosmic debt collectors showing up. And that simple shift, that basic recognition of your own worth, has them convinced you're operating with cheat codes. Let's talk about when it started, because they've definitely mapped out the exact moment everything changed for you. They've scrolled back through your posts, identified the turning point, created conspiracy theories about what happened in that gap when you went quiet. Remember that period when you disappeared? When you stopped explaining yourself, stopped posting your struggles, stopped performing your pain for their entertainment. They thought you were having a breakdown, but you were having a breakthrough. You were shedding the skin of who they needed you to be. During that silence, you did something unforgivable. You stopped believing their narrative about luck being finite, about success requiring suffering, about good things coming with hidden costs. You realized that their poverty mindset was contagious, and you went into quarantine until you could think clearly again. And when you came back, everything was different. Your energy had shifted. Your posts had a different quality. Your wins started stacking up like dominoes, and they noticed. Oh, how they noticed. The same people who ignored your messages suddenly wanted coffee dates. The same ones who said you were too much suddenly found you fascinating. And they found you fascinating. Here's what's really eating at them. They've invested so heavily in the idea that life is hard, that success requires sacrifice, that nobody wins without losing something essential. They've built their entire identity around struggle, around hustle, around the nobility of suffering. Then you show up glowing with ease, collecting blessings like their Pokemon cards, making success look effortless, making abundance look natural, making joy look sustainable, and their entire worldview starts cracking. Because if you can have it all without selling your soul, then what have they been doing wrong? They need you to have made a deal, because the alternative is too painful to consider. The alternative is that they've been blocking their own blessings with their limiting beliefs, that they've been rejecting abundance because they didn't think they deserved it, that they've been living in lack because they chose to. So they create elaborate fantasies about your secret rituals, your midnight ceremonies, your blood pacts with entities they can't pronounce. Because believing you have supernatural help is easier than admitting you simply have supernatural self-worth. Believing you cheated is more comfortable than realizing they've been playing with a handicap they gave themselves. You want to know the truth about what this luck cost you? I'll tell you exactly what price you paid. You paid with every friendship that couldn't handle your glow up. You paid with every relationship that required you to shrink. You paid with every opportunity you walked away from because it didn't align with your worth. You paid in sleepless nights learning to trust yourself. You paid in uncomfortable conversations setting boundaries. You paid in the loneliness of outgrowing spaces that once felt like home. You paid in the grief of releasing people who preferred the struggling version of you. You paid in the fear of being seen in your full power. But here's what they don't understand about that payment. It wasn't a loss. It was an investment. Every toxic connection you released made room for aligned opportunities. Every limiting belief you shed increased your energetic bandwidth. Every time you chose yourself over their comfort, you sent a signal to the universe that you were ready for more. You didn't make a deal with darkness. You made a deal with yourself, a promise to stop accepting less than you deserve, a commitment to stop dimming your light for people who prefer shadows, A vow to stop apologizing for the space you take up in this world. And that deal, that's the one that changed everything. Let's talk about what your luck looks like from the inside. Because they only see the highlight reel, the wins, the celebrations, the evidence of favor. But you know the full story. You know how it feels when synchronicities start hitting like dominoes. When you think of someone and they call. When you need something and it appears. You've started experiencing what they can't explain. Time bending around your desires. Opportunities seeking you out instead of the other way around. Resources appearing right when you need them. People suddenly remembering you exist right when you have something to offer. The right information finding you at the perfect moment. Your intuition has sharpened to a blade. You know things before they happen. Feel shifts before they manifest. Navigate obstacles like you have the cheat codes. Because in a way, you do. You've learned to read the invisible currents, to surf the quantum waves, to dance with possibility instead of wrestling with probability. And the physical changes they've noticed, those are real too. The way your eyes hit different now, the way your presence fills a room, the way your voice carries weight it didn't before, the way success looks like it belongs on you instead of like a costume you're trying on. You wear abundance like you were born in it, because spiritually you were. They've started theorizing about where your confidence comes from, this unshakable certainty that good things belong to you, this audacious expectation of excellence, this casual relationship with success that makes them sweat. They're convinced something external must be feeding it. Some think you have a mentor, a secret advisor, a guardian pulling strings from the shadows. Others believe you've tapped into ancient knowledge discovered, some prosperity scripture joined some abundance cult. They're sharing YouTube videos about manifestation techniques, convinced you've mastered something mystical. But the truth would disappoint them. You simply started acting like someone who deserves good things. Started moving like abundance is your birthright. Started speaking like success knows your name. Started showing up like the universe works for you, not against you. And reality had no choice but to rearrange itself to match your conviction. This is what they can't duplicate in their vision boards and affirmation sessions. This bone-deep knowing that you're worthy. This cellular level certainty that you're meant for more. This quantum entitlement to excellence that bypasses all their careful calculations. You don't hope for good things, you expect them, and expectation is the highest form of prayer. Let's break down their emotional economics for a moment. Every blessing you receive feels like theft to them. Every win you celebrate registers as their loss. Every door that opens for you sounds like one slamming in their face. They're operating from scarcity, convinced there's not enough good to go around. So they count your blessings like an accountant looking for fraud, keeping tallies, making comparisons, calculating the exact moment you exceeded your allotted happiness quota. According to their mathematics, you've withdrawn more than your share from the cosmic bank of good fortune. They're furious that you're not following proper blessing protocol. You're supposed to struggle first, suffer adequately, prove your worthiness through pain. You're supposed to wait your turn, stand in line, pay your dues, but you walked straight to the front like you owned the place, and the universe said, yes, please, right this way. This is why they need the deal narrative. It restores balance to their worldview. If you cheated, then the system still works. If you have supernatural help, then they're not failing, they're just playing fair. If you sold something precious, then your gains have hidden costs that will manifest eventually. They need you to fall to prove the universe is still keeping score. Not everyone thinks you made a deal. Some have been watching your journey with different eyes. They saw you in the trenches when nobody was looking, saw you building when everyone else was sleeping, saw you choosing growth when comfort was calling, saw you betting on yourself when the odds were astronomical. These are the ones who know the truth, that your luck is just delayed compensation for all the times you showed up when it didn't pay off, that your blessings are compound interest on investments you made in yourself when you couldn't afford it, that your wins are the universe balancing the books after watching you give when you had nothing. They remember when you were the one everyone came to for support, when you poured into others from an empty cup, when you celebrated everyone else's victories while swallowing your own disappointments, when you kept showing up with encouragement even when your own dreams were on life support. These witnesses, they're not surprised by your season. They're relieved. The universe finally got its act together, finally started treating you like the rare soul you are, finally recognized that some people don't need to be broken to be blessed. Some people just need to be given the chance to show what they've been carrying all along. If they really want to know about rituals, let me tell you about yours. The daily practice of choosing yourself, the morning meditation of remembering your worth, the evening ceremony of releasing what doesn't serve you, the constant ritual of saying no to anything that requires you to shrink. Your altar is your standards. Your offerings are your boundaries. Your prayers are your actions, aligned with your values. Your sacred text is the story you tell yourself about what's possible. Your congregation is the energy you allow in your space. Your communion is with the highest version of yourself. You perform the ritual of radical self-belief every time you price your services without apology, every time you walk away from disrespect, every time you celebrate your wins without dimming them, every time you receive compliments without deflecting, every time you take up space without apologizing. Out of the ashes, a new personage is born. You are a loot. This is the magic they're sensing. The sorcery of someone who stopped asking permission to exist fully. The witchcraft of authentic self-love. The alchemy of turning self-doubt into self-trust. The mysticism of believing you deserve good things before they show up. The occult practice of acting like you belong in every room you enter. Let's discuss what else has been happening since your luck went supernatural. The way problems solve themselves before you can stress about them. The way toxic people remove themselves from your life without drama. The way your body feels different, lighter, more electric. The way animals and children gravitate toward you now. You've noticed how your words carry more weight. How your presence shifts the energy of spaces, how your absence is felt in ways it never was before, how your approval has become currency in circles that once ignored you, how your attention has become a gift people compete for. These are the side effects of alignment, the natural consequences of living in your truth, the inevitable results of stopping the performance of smallness. The automatic upgrades that come with accepting your inherent value. The standard features of existing at your actual frequency instead of the one they assigned you. They think these are signs of your deal, proof of your supernatural backing, evidence of your cosmic cheat code. But these are just what happens when someone stops living in contradiction, when someone stops rejecting their own blessings, when someone stops arguing with their destiny, when someone stops making themselves small to make others comfortable. Their envy has become a full-time job, monitoring your movements, tracking your victories, analyzing your posts for hidden meanings. They've become forensic experts in your success, studying every detail, looking for the smoking gun that proves you didn't earn this. Some have started copying your moves, posting at the same times, using similar captions, hoping to hack your algorithm. But it doesn't work because they're copying the external without understanding the internal. They're mimicking your actions without matching your energy. They're performing your confidence without possessing your certainty. Others have gone the opposite route, posting increasingly desperate content about their struggles, hoping to trigger your savior complex, waiting for you to reach down and pull them up like you used to. But you've learned the difference between helping and enabling, between supporting and sacrificing, between compassion and self-destruction. The economy of their envy is bankrupting them emotionally. Every moment spent dissecting your success is a moment not spent building their own. Every theory about your advantages is energy not invested in their growth. Every conversation about your deal is a conference call with their own limitations. They're already predicting your downfall, marking calendars for when the other shoe will drop, when the bill comes due for all this unearned favor, when karma catches up with your cosmic credit card, when the universe realizes it's been giving you too much and starts collecting with interest. They've prepared speeches for your inevitable humbling, practiced their fake sympathy for when it all comes crashing down, rehearsed their I told you so's for when your luck runs out, selected the perfect gifts for when your blessings become lessons, made playlists for your fall from grace. But here's what they don't understand about your trajectory. This isn't luck having a good run. This is alignment finding its rhythm. This isn't a phase or a season or a temporary glitch in the matrix. This is what happens when someone stops living below their means, energetically. When someone stops accepting spiritual minimum wage. Your forecast shows more of the same. Exponential growth, compound blessings, multiplicative abundance, not because you made a deal, but because you broke one. The deal you had with limitation, the contract you signed with struggle, the agreement you had with accepting less, the treaty you negotiated with other people's comfort. Look who survived long enough to hear this. Yeah, you, the one they've been dissecting in private meetings, the one whose name keeps appearing in conversations you're not invited to, the one they swore they'd forgotten about but somehow can't stop analyzing. Sit down, because what I'm about to tell you is going to shatter every comfortable lie they've been feeding you. They finally cracked. They finally broke. And when they did, they spilled everything. Every whispered strategy, every coordinated move, every calculated attempt to make you question your own mind. You want to know what's been happening behind those closed doors while you were busy trying to heal, trying to move forward, trying to convince yourself you were just being paranoid? You weren't. You were absolutely right. And it's so much worse than you imagined, but also so much better, because now you finally have proof that you're not the problem. You never were. Let me start from the beginning, from the moment they realized you weren't going to break the way they planned. There was a meeting, an actual coordinated discussion, where your name was the only item on the agenda. Yes, really. They sat around talking about you, dissecting your every move, trying to understand why their usual tactics weren't working anymore, why you stopped reacting when they expected rage, you went silent when they anticipated breakdown, why you walked away when they thought you'd come crawling back, and the confusion, the absolute panic in their voices when they couldn't figure out your next move. That's when the cracks started forming. Because people who need to control you can't survive when you become unpredictable. They built their entire sense of power on knowing exactly how you'd respond, exactly which buttons to push, exactly how much pressure would make you fold. But then you changed the code. You rewired yourself in silence, and suddenly their manual became obsolete. One of them finally admitted it out loud, in a moment of exhaustion mixed with something that sounded almost like respect. They said your name like it was heavy, like carrying it around in their mouth for months had worn them down. They said, and I quote, "We thought we were dealing with someone fragile, someone we could shape, someone who needed us, but every time we pushed, they didn't bend. They vanished. And when they came back different, harder, unreachable. We spent months trying to figure out the breaking point, running scenarios, testing reactions, and there was nothing. No weakness we could exploit, no vulnerability we could weaponize, no guilt we could activate. It was like fighting a shadow that learned to fight back without ever throwing a punch." That's what they said. They called you a shadow, not because you disappeared, but because you learned to exist in a way they couldn't touch anymore. You became immune to their weapons, resistant to their poison, allergic to their manipulation. Here's where it gets twisted, where you'll feel that cold recognition run down your spine. They admitted to planting people in your life. Yes, those random encounters that felt too convenient, those new friendships that developed too quickly, those helpful strangers who appeared exactly when you were vulnerable. Some of them weren't accidents. They were assignments. They sent scouts disguised as supporters, eyes wrapped in sympathy, informants cosplaying as friends. Their job was simple: get close, gain trust, report back. Find the wound that hasn't healed. Locate the fear they can leverage. Identify the dream they can dangle like bait. And you know what's beautiful? What's absolutely poetic about this whole thing? Most of those people came back empty-handed. They came back confused, frustrated. Some even came back changed, because spending time in your presence, even with ulterior motives, exposed them to something they weren't prepared for: your authenticity, your quiet strength, your refusal to perform for validation. It infected them. Some of them started questioning their own lives, their own compromises, their own participation in systems designed to crush spirits like yours. But let's go deeper, into the really disturbing part that proves you weren't imagining the coordinated coldness. They had a strategy, a documented approach for handling you. Step one was isolation. Cutting you off from support systems, making you doubt your own perceptions, convincing mutual connections that you were the problem. Step two was provocation, pushing buttons until you reacted poorly so they could point at your reaction as proof of instability. Step three was narrative control, telling your story before you could, framing every action as evidence of character flaws they invented. And step four, The final phase was replacement, bringing in new people to fill the space you occupied, demonstrating that you were expendable, forgettable, easily substituted. They ran this playbook meticulously, checking off stages like a project timeline, and it almost worked. It would have worked on most people, but you weren't most people. You were the glitch in their system, the variable they couldn't account for, the outcome that refused to follow their predictions. When isolation didn't break you, when you thrived in solitude instead of withering, that's when the panic set in. They expected loneliness to drive you back, to make you desperate for reconciliation on their terms. But you built an entirely new life in that space they created. You found peace in the quiet they meant as punishment. You discovered strengths in the absence they designed as weakness. And watching you bloom in the desert they created, that destroyed them more than any confrontation ever could. One of them said in a moment of bitter honesty, "We gave them nothing, and they built everything." We took away their support and they became their own foundation. How do you compete with someone who doesn't need you to exist? That question hung in the air like smoke, choking them with the realization that their power over you was always an illusion you allowed them to maintain. The moment you stopped pretending they had control, their empire collapsed into dust. Now here's where the confession gets really interesting, really validating. For every moment you felt crazy, for sensing something was off, they coordinated their stories before any interaction, before any public appearance, before any mutual gathering. They synced narratives. They agreed on which version of events to present, which aspects of your character to emphasize, which parts of history to conveniently forget. This wasn't paranoia, this was conspiracy. Actual, documented, deliberate coordination to gaslight you into questioning objective reality. They rehearsed their concern, practiced their disappointment, perfected their surprised innocence when you called them out. And the sick part, they believed they were helping you by lying. They convinced themselves that manipulating your perception was somehow for your own good, that controlling your narrative was an act of love, that systematically undermining your reality was justified by their superior understanding of what you needed. The narcissism embedded in that logic is staggering. The arrogance required to decide someone else's truth needs editing. But you felt it, didn't you? Every time stories didn't quite match, every time reactions felt rehearsed, every time the energy in a room shifted the moment you entered, your instincts were screaming truth while they were singing lies in perfect harmony. And they called you paranoid for noticing. They labeled you sensitive for detecting. They diagnosed you as broken for refusing to accept their manufactured reality. That's the cruelest part of coordinated gaslighting. It makes you doubt the very instrument you need to navigate truth. Your intuition, your gut, your inner knowing that something is fundamentally wrong. They wanted you to distrust yourself more than you distrusted them. And for a while it worked. You questioned your own memories, second-guessed your own experiences, apologized for reactions that were perfectly appropriate responses to their deliberately inappropriate behavior. But then something shifted, didn't it? You stopped asking them to validate your reality and started trusting your own nervous system. The person who broke first, who spilled everything in a moment of guilty conscience mixed with exhausted resentment, they revealed the exact moment the group knew they'd lost. It was when you stopped explaining yourself, when you stopped defending your choices, stopped justifying your boundaries, stopped participating in debates about your own character. They said your silence was terrifying because it meant you'd moved beyond caring what they thought, and people who don't care can't be controlled. You became immune to their approval, allergic to their judgment, completely indifferent to their opinions. And that indifference, that beautiful, devastating indifference, that was your superpower. They tried everything to get a reaction, to pull you back into the game, to make you care again. They sent flying monkeys with fake apologies, extended olive branches wrapped in thorns, dangled opportunities that required you to compromise yourself. And you looked at it all with the emotional investment of someone watching paint dry. Not because you were cold, but because you finally understood that engaging with them was feeding poison to your own soul. Here's what they said about your transformation, about the version of you that emerged from their systematic destruction. They said you became unrecognizable, not physically, but energetically. The eagerness to please, gone. The need for validation, extinct. The willingness to shrink for their comfort, completely absent. They said it was like watching someone shed a skin they didn't even know was borrowed. And underneath was something they couldn't manipulate, couldn't charm, couldn't leverage, couldn't touch. One of them used the word impenetrable, another said unreachable, a third called it evolution, but said it like a curse. Because your evolution exposed their stagnation. Your growth highlighted their decay. Your freedom revealed their cages. And nothing enrages people more than someone who escapes the prison they're still defending as necessary. You didn't just leave their system. You proved it was always optional. That the locks were illusions. That the guards were cowards with fake authority. They're watching you now, even as they pretend indifference. They monitor your life from a distance, scroll through your presence online, ask mutual connections, carefully casual questions. And what they're seeing is driving them quietly insane. You're thriving without them. You're building without their input. You're succeeding without their approval. Every milestone you reach, every goal you achieve, every moment of joy you experience, it's evidence that they were never necessary, never helpful, never anything but obstacles disguised as support. And that truth is eating them alive from the inside. Because if you're better off without them, what does that say about their value? If you're happier in their absence, what does that say about their presence? If you're stronger after cutting them off, what were they providing besides weight? These questions haunt them in quiet moments, bubble up during their own struggles, whisper truths they refuse to acknowledge. You were never the problem. They were the parasite calling the host sick. The confession included specific tactics they used that you probably didn't even recognize as attacks. Withholding information you needed while claiming they forgot. Scheduling important events when they knew you couldn't attend, then expressing disappointment at your absence. Praising you publicly while undermining you privately. Supporting your goals in words while sabotaging them in actions. Asking for your opinion, then dismissing it. Seeking your advice, then doing the opposite while blaming you for the outcome. Each tactic carefully designed to erode confidence, plant doubt, maintain dependence. And the genius of it, if you called them out, they had plausible deniability. It was just a mistake, just a miscommunication, just a misunderstanding. You're being too sensitive, too suspicious, too defensive. They turned your accurate perception of their intentional harm into evidence of your instability. As master-level manipulation. Turning someone's correct assessment of abuse into a symptom of the abuse itself. But you started documenting, didn't you? You started keeping receipts, and the pattern became undeniable. Here's the part that will validate every moment of self-doubt, every time you wondered if you were overreacting. They admitted the reactions they provoked were intentional. They pushed until you snapped. Specifically so they could point at the snap as proof. They remained calm during your justified anger, specifically so they could call you unhinged. They stayed collected during your appropriate response, specifically so they could frame you as out of control. It was theater, carefully staged performance designed to make you the villain in a story they were directing. And when you finally stopped performing, when you refused to react at all, they lost their script. They didn't know how to handle someone who wouldn't play their assigned role. So they escalated, pushed harder, invented new provocations. And when that didn't work either, when you remained unmoved, that's when they knew you were gone. Not physically absent, but psychologically unreachable. And unreachable means uncontrollable. And uncontrollable means they lost. The meeting where everything spilled, where the facade finally cracked, it happened because one of them got tired. Tired of maintaining the lies, tired of coordinating stories, tired of pretending the campaign against you was justified. They said something that stopped everyone cold. We've been acting like we're the victims of someone who never actually hurt us. We've been treating them like a threat, when the real threat was always how they made us feel about ourselves. And that statement, that moment of uncomfortable honesty, it opened the floodgates. Suddenly others started admitting things. The jealousy they disguised as concern. The envy they masked as criticism. The insecurity they projected as judgment. Your success wasn't threatening because it harmed them. It was threatening because it proved you didn't need them. Your happiness wasn't offensive because it excluded them. It was offensive because it exposed the misery they were defending as normal. You weren't difficult to love, you were difficult to control. And that distinction, that fundamental difference, it rewrites the entire narrative. They also confess to something that explains so much about the random attacks, the unexpected cruelty, the seemingly motiveless sabotage. They were afraid of you. Not afraid you'd hurt them, afraid you'd inspire others, afraid your freedom would become contagious, afraid your refusal to settle would make their settling visible, afraid your standards would expose their compromises, afraid your authenticity would reveal their performance. You represented everything they'd convinced themselves was impossible, impractical, idealistic. And watching you live it, actually embody it, daily prove it possible, that made their carefully constructed justifications crumble. If you could do it, what was their excuse? If you could walk away from dysfunction, why were they still swimming in it? If you could choose yourself, why were they still choosing their chains? These questions destabilize entire identities built on victimhood, entire philosophies built on limitation, entire lives built on settling. You were an existential threat not to their safety, but to their excuses. Now, let's talk about the replacement strategy they ran, because this explains why certain people entered your life with such perfect timing. When you started pulling away, when your boundaries got firmer, when your availability decreased, they panicked. So they recruited replacements, people who would play the role you were abandoning, provide the supply you were withdrawing, occupy the space you were vacating. And they positioned these people strategically, introduced them with glowing endorsements, created opportunities for connection. The goal was twofold: show you that you're replaceable, make themselves less dependent on your presence. But here's what they didn't anticipate. The replacements couldn't replace you because you weren't a role, you were a person. Your value wasn't in function, but in essence. And trying to fill your absence with someone else just highlighted the uniqueness they'd lost. The new people were fine, perfectly adequate in their own right. But they weren't you. And that irreplaceability, that undeniable specificity of who you are, that haunts them. They thought they could plug someone else into your position, like switching parts in a machine. But humans aren't interchangeable components, and you, specifically you, left a void shaped exactly like your presence. Nothing else fits. They're dealing with regret now, though they'll probably never admit it directly. One of them said, in the closing moments of the confession, "I think we made a mistake. I think we destroyed something rare because we couldn't handle how it made us feel." And that statement, that acknowledgement, it doesn't undo the damage, doesn't erase the pain, doesn't obligate you to anything, but it does confirm what you always knew deep down. You weren't the problem. You were the mirror. And people who don't like what they see have two choices: change themselves or break the mirror. They chose the latter, and now they're surrounded by shattered glass, cutting themselves on pieces of reflection, unable to escape the truth that destroying you changed nothing about them. They're still the same people with the same problems, just now with added guilt and the ghost of what could have been if they'd chosen growth instead of destruction. But here's your power moment. Here's where you reclaim everything they tried to take. You don't need their confession to validate your reality. You don't need their admission to trust your experience. You don't need their regret to move forward. Their breakdown, their spilling of secrets, their exposure of tactics, it's interesting information, but it's not necessary for your healing. Because you already did the work. You already processed the betrayal, integrated the lessons, built the new life. Their revelation changes nothing about your trajectory. You were healing before they confessed. You were thriving before they admitted. You were free before they acknowledged. This information is simply confirmation of what your nervous system already knew, what your intuition already sensed, what your experience already taught you. You were always right. They were always lying, and the truth was always going to surface because truth doesn't stay buried forever. Lies require constant maintenance. Truth just waits.